As we traveled week after week down small farm tracks or trails, over rolling hills and mountains, through valleys and woods, one location stayed sharp in our minds, standing out as our ultimate goal among the lost mansions of Scotland. Today we take you deep into the Highlands to a rarely visited, seldom photographed, and barely recorded clan seat that might just be the most amazing abandoned mansion you've never seen. To my knowledge, no recording as comprehensive has been made of it until what I show you today. The original fortified house on its site is long since gone, but would have looked something like this one before us, built around the same time in another part of the country. The reasons for the destruction of the original house and the fall of the current mansion we take you to shortly are tied to a history of tragedy, untimely deaths, and conflict, with many connections to the popular series Outlander. In fact, many scenes in the show were filmed next to it. Abandoned Places Scotland, a madman's tragic dream mansion. Our tale begins in the days of the old Highland clans. During the cloudy years of rule under Kenneth MacAlpin, first true king of Alba, the Picts united with the Gaels of the Kingdom of Dalriada in the west, forming the basis of modern Scotland. Kenneth's descendant, King Malcolm III's own descendant, Stout Duncan, became the first official chief of Clan Donaghy, or the Children of Duncan, the clan that lived upon and ruled the lands where our lost house would one day come to stand. He was to support Robert the Bruce at the Battle of Bannockburn and Methven. The clan's fourth chief, Robert, became enraged at the killing of King James I, who was murdered in a church. He hunted down the killers and captured Sir Graham, who was then executed. At this time, the family was granted the barony of Strowen for their good deeds, and many in the clan began to go by the modern name of Robertson. Over the years, the lands of the clan were drawn into the Jacobite cause. They fought alongside Charles I and the Marquis of Montrose against Cromwell, and then later again to instate Charles II as king. On the overthrow of James II, the most famous Clan Robertson member, who was to be the catalyst for the building of the mansion, made their entrance. Chief Alexander Robertson was famous as a larger-than-life poet who fought in every Jacobite uprising in support of the deposed Stuart royal family line of Scottish kings. During this time, he lived in a tower that formed the foundations of the later mansion. In 1689, he led the clan to fight at Killiecrankie to reinstall James II as king. Here he was captured and exiled to France until 1703, when he was pardoned. In 1750, he again rose and fought at the Battle of Sheriffmuir on the side of James's son and was again captured, but then rescued by his sister and escaped to exile. During this time, his sister took care of the lands, and on his return, he imprisoned her on a remote island. His own mother had starved his uncle to death, and in local legends, she was said to be followed by crows who would call out her guilt. Due to this, he would never trust women, though they often helped him still in his years as chief. Amazingly, Alexander rallied the clan again for the Battle of Prestonpans in 1746 at the age of 76, supporting Bonnie Prince Charlie, the grandson of the deposed James II. It was recorded at this time that the Duke of Perth, who had been staying at Alexander's castle, was unable to fight for weeks due to the heavy drinking he had done with him there. Alexander returned from his last battle in the coach of the English general, wearing his captured wolf fur coat. Yet it was here he caused the clan to lose it all, for when the Jacobites failed in their final rebellion, the English burned his tower house called the Hermitage to the ground, and his lands were seized. Awash in debts, he would die just 3 years afterwards, and his body was carried by 2,000 clansmen to its last resting place. After his death, a large tower house called Mount Alexander was built on the ashes of the Hermitage in 1801. In 1845 and 1854, the land suffered from clearances where many clan members were forced by their own leaders to leave their houses and move overseas to allow sheep to graze their lands. At the same time, the area suffered the Highland potato famine, which had spilled over from Ireland and depopulated the region. Sadly, the last lands were sold in 1853 due to rising debts by the 18th clan chief to one General MacDonald, the commander of the Scottish Army. The general was a huge man. He wore a sword across his back, and he had fought in many campaigns against Napoleon and been wounded many times in battle, was once the lieutenant governor of Jamaica and an aide to the Duke of Wellington. Under the general, the Robertson family seat was demolished in 1859 to make way for a new palatial and ornate mansion designed by architect Andrew Heaton and finished in 1862. It is this amazing 43-room, 3-tower building that we will explore with you today. Sadly, the general was to die in 1866, just 4 years after completing the house and barely having been able to enjoy it in his retirement. His son then lived in the house, entered the military, and also became the commander-in-chief of Scotland's army. He later built a huge steam yacht that could carry 360 people across the nearby loch. The local town, however, refused the ferry service's operation, and the boat was used as a personal yacht for entertainment. In 1882, the ship sank in a storm, and in great debts, he sold the estate and mansion to the man now famous for the most popular beer in Scotland. Hugh Tennent of Well Park was from a brewing family. His father and grandfather had tragically died when he was just 1 year old, and their brewery was held in trust for him until he was 21 years old. He had traveled to Bavaria to study lager making and began production of Tennent's lager in 1885, having just taken over the business. He was to revolutionize the industry by making a dedicated lager brewery that newspapers called a Madman's dream. However, that year, sadly, Hugh died at the age of just 27 due to an enlarged heart and with no heir, only having owned the mansion for 9 years. During that brief time, he was known to have tried to have the General MacDonald's family crest removed from the front of the house. Hugh Tennent's brewery, too, was to leave the family and is now run by another. Since his death, Hugh has been popularly played in commercials by Sam Heughan of Outlander fame. In time, the empty mansion was bought by Mr. Bunton, a railway magnate and owner of the Anderston Foundry. His daughter, then having married, inherited it upon his death, but had trouble upkeeping it after World War I due to manpower shortages caused by the potato famine, Highland clearances, and war deaths. By this time, the local Robertson clan was officially gone, having sold all their lands in 1926 due to large debts. By the Second World War, the military took the house over as a school for displaced Polish refugee boys and girls. It became very successful and was well known for spreading Polish arts and culture. By 1943, its staff and students expanded until its final closure in 1951. During its years as a school, a fire occurred, damaging the house and destroying priceless artworks inside. After closure in the 1950s, the house's contents were sold and it was essentially abandoned. By the 1960s, thieves stole the lead from the roof and it entered a decades-long period of decline. And here it sits today. As this pile of a mansion looms into sight, it's clear just how ornate it was. The first Gothic spire, with a roof of tile still attached, jabs in the air. We're going to take you around the outer edge to the front. For many years, I'd always wanted to visit Chateau Miranda in Belgium and never had the chance. It now lies as rubble, and this is a close second in grandeur, somehow almost unknown. The outside doors are still attached, while the insides appear to be in a state of great decay. But once we reach the front, it's clear just how remarkable this place is. The front tower entrance is striking, heavily carved, and nothing like anything I've seen before. The crest of General MacDonald still sits above the door, despite the efforts of Hugh Tennent to remove it. Scanning up the tower, a tiny window and an insanely bent spike sit at the very top. The crest reads in Latin, per mare per terras, by sea and by land, the Clan MacDonald motto. House dangerous, keep out. The atmosphere is palpable. It's an incredibly photogenic place. This building dwarfs you. The more photos I took, the more detail popped out like a carving over a window. In a corner, the 3 crowns symbolize the Order of the Bath, which the general once belonged to. The winds pick up, blowing from the lochs and mountains as we head along the opposite side of the house. Along the further side, there is even more highly detailed stonework and more unique features.
Could be miles away.
This balcony would have afforded commanding views for the general to oversee his lands. Most of the older buildings in the nearby town, in fact, were built by him. Near it, an enigmatic crest with no symbol or writing, possibly defaced by Hugh Tennent. We walk further along the side looking for the back. In the distance above the mansion looms what the locals call the Fairy Mountain. It's a spellbinding scene. At the back side of the grand house are smaller outbuildings and unnatural earthworks, possibly linked to the original houses. Likely home to workers, places for storage, or linked to everyday servant duties. The house also had a large stable block, which is not far from here, but is still in use. A glimpse inside shows plant growth and fallen timbers. We head into the right-hand side down what looks like a major hallway. From the number of fallen boards, stone, and plaster, it seems the house was fully there when it decayed to its current state. Metal grates, fallen beams, and sharp, broken boards fill the hall further in, making passage difficult. We turn back to try another route that might be easier. The interior mixture of mortared granite fieldstone does not match the outside carved sandstone. This makes it highly probable that Chief Alexander Robertson's large tower house was cannibalized by the general when this was built on top of it. Another collapsed roof outbuilding stands to the left side, but we spy a second way in from here. Through this arch is a small courtyard of entrances. These work and servant rooms are choked with rubble. We finally find a way in, down a narrow passageway. These long corridors choked with beams remind us of a giant abandoned mansion we explored to the north of here 2 years ago. This large brick fireplace gives us an idea of the type of furnishings inside. Eerie and quiet with shifting footing and crumbling walls, a place to move slowly through. Rocks and wood occasionally clatter underfoot, breaking the spell. In this room, a large arched window and 2 almost perfectly fallen windows neatly arranged. Rusted metal cables sprout from the ground, their use a mystery. The hall seems limitless, with travel slowed to a crawl by the dangerous footing. The inside is one of the most dangerous we've traveled through. The cement wall with a window to the right seems like a very modern concrete addition, very out of place. It's within places like these where you simply have to suspend your disbelief and fully enter their world, leaving yours behind. Every time you return, it feels like, for just a moment, you're a stranger trespassing back to the normal. A glance upward shows a remarkable sight, the underpinnings of the tower top. A broken stair, remarkably still held by a few beams. Parts of the stair lie below in a pile. In the mansion middle, somehow trees grow, possibly in a miniature court. As we go deeper, so become the piles of rubble and splintered wood. In some parts, the second floor still exists, precariously dangling. Jagged piles form where the weight of the second floor's roof fell upon the first floor's roof, making cones of broken doors, windows, and beams. The passageway opens up into a large space which may have been the entrance hall, but is now a wild collection of heaped beams and tiles. We decide to attempt to cross the death trap ground in front of us, as there seems to be a few openings ahead. Above us, the front main tower looms like a distant marker. A largely intact door sits weirdly suspended in rubble. Here more plaster and laths cling to the wall than elsewhere. All around us, broken spires of chimneys and towers. Three arched windows would have looked down on the small interior courtyard from here. They seem too perfect, as if they remain from a past building. Through the piles of rubble, you can just make out the backside of the front door, still painted white with a few old panels. From here we head down the halls, but we aren't done with this place quite yet. There's one last find, and we'd like to show you just how memorable this place is from above, and why it's one of the most amazing mansions you've never seen. Rusted rich door brackets stick from the stone, giving an idea of the immense amount spent in the construction. It's hard not to see tragedy and sadness in this place. Perhaps it is abandoned partly because of so many of these very memories. It was twice burned to the ground, and was to be 3 times the home of families who died young, lost everything, and faded into history. Today it stands mimicking a new madman's dream of Hugh Tennent. Alexander the poet chief put his own words to paper when the English burned his home, the first mansion built on this site. It remains the best farewell to this once great house. He was to die 3 years later in hiding at 80 years of age, lying in a bed in a burned-out thatched cottage in the nearby mountains and woods where he penned this poem. With this diversity of view, oft I have waved my anxious pain, when from the summit I pursue the rock, the river, woods, or plain, lakes, mountains, meads, fields fertile far and nigh, divert my gloomy thought and court my wandering eye. Imagine then, thou blessed abode, ere while thy master's fond delight, where he is certain to unload his anguish spite of lawless might. Think on the woes our first forefathers knew, thrust out of paradise, and such I feel for you, and you, my pretty feathered choir, who sung each morn your cheerful lays, who could your patron soul inspire to join in your Creator's praise. For whom will you rehearse your heavenly notes, erect your gorges and distend your throats? A barbarous, unrelenting throng cuts down your bowers and every tree, revenging your melodious song merely because you sung for me. Soon from your native mansions must you fly, but for your rightful lord expelled, as well as I. Alas, that I should see an age which boundless perjury has brought, that I must leave to noisy rage the peaceful labors of my thought. What swain so void of sympathy but grieves to think my spotless cell is made a den of thieves? The groves that rapture to me gave, contemplating the works above, must harbor now each filthy slave, composed of the reverse of love. The lecher on each flowery brink will hear his fulsome doxy sing. The traitors too with laboring think how to withstand their native king. Abominations of such deep disgrace as ne'er polluted yet this holy place. The thickets of yon shady brow where the wildest creatures freely rang, no more that privilege allow. So wonderfully things are changed, all must pour out their little lives apace to feast the vilest sons of human race. Methinks I see the harmless crowd viewing their murderers around, in dying sighs and groans aloud proclaim the pain of every mound, wishing him safe who ne'er could see them bleed, even to submit himself whom they were born to feed. And thou, my lovely fountain, show, for thou couldst well inspire the swain, and make his icy bosom glow, or cool or quench his raising pain. Tell how the friendly bushes strove to excel, to rear a shade for so divine a well. As I revere thy silver streams, thy cooling rills, thy murmuring noise, where often, with a health to James, thou couldst revive our scanty joys. And now the hellish bands advance, bent to destroy whatever they meet. Lo, while the furious horsemen prance, poor peasants gasp beneath their feet, yet cruelty sits smiling on their cheeks. To hear the orphan's cries and widow's shrieks, O heavens, let me revolve as far, if ever ship so far could roll, to freeze beneath the northern star, or perish at the other pole. Ere I behold such an unnatural war, Christians commit what pagans would abhor. What then remains but that I go? As Argentius I kindly bid, since there's a fate that rules below, from whom there's nothing can be hid. That fate can bear me witness of my heart, how I have loved this land, how loath I am to part. Retract not, O soul, I must perform what destiny ordains. In Providence I put my trust. Adieu to woods, to hills, to plains, thou envy of the turbulently great. Farewell, my sweet, my innocent retreat. We hope you've enjoyed this amazing house as much as we have. Please join us on our next adventure as we travel across the lost mansions and buildings of Scotland. Subscribe and explore with us today.